Dear students, you are most welcome for our lesson of today. When we look at our previous lesson, we had discussed the introduction to cell. Now we are going to look at the structure of two types of eukaryotic cells, because in our last lesson we said eukaryotic cell has two main types. We have the animal cell and we have the plant cell. And today we are going to look at the cell structure. It means the structure of these two eukaryotic cells that we talked about. So now let us start our lesson with this cell structure. Basically, we said that when we want to talk about cells, one of their property is they are microscopic. They cannot be seen with naked eyes. They need microscope to be seen. So it means when we're using microscope, the microscopes are of different types. There is the type of microscope that we call light microscope that uses light from sun. We use the reflection of light from sun. And there is also electronic microscope. And these two microscopes have different magnifications. So it means the rate at which the levels in which they display part of the cells differ. Now we're going to look at how the cells appear in these two types of microscope. We shall first start with light microscope. So let us look at the structure of animal cell under light microscope. The structure of animal cell, under light microscope, So when we see animal cell under light microscope, we shall only see three parts of this cell, because light microscope has low magnifying power. Therefore, it shows only three parts in the animal cell. So when we look at the structure of animal cell and light microscope, then we shall be able to see this. So we shall have our cell membrane. Cell membrane can be seen. Then we have the nucleus of the cell. Then the cytoplasm of the cell. So it means when we look at an animal cell under light microscope, these are the parts or structures that we can see. One, we shall see cell membrane. Then we shall see cytoplasm of the cell. Then we can also see the nucleus of the cell. So these are three main structures that we can see on animal cell when we look at animal cell under a light microscope, because we said we cannot see cells with our naked eyes except we use microscope. So it means someone can either use light microscope or electronic microscope. But when you use light microscope, you can see only a few parts in animal cell, these three: cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and nucleus of the cell. Now let us look at the structure of plant cell under light microscope. Structure of plant cell under light microscope. So when we observe plant cell under light microscope, the structures that we shall be able to see are slightly more than the one we have seen in the animal cell. So it means plant cell under light microscope, we shall be able to see the following structures in the plant cell. So when we look at the plant cell under light microscope, we shall see a number of parts of this cell. The first part we can see is the cell wall. We already know that the plant cell has cell wall that is made out of a cellulose, which is a non-living component of the plant cell, which makes the plant cell to appear rigid with definite shape. Then you will also be able to see the cell membrane. Then we can also be able to see the nucleus of the cell. Then we can also see the chloroplast, the organelle that produce the green pigment of the plant, known as chlorophyll. Shall be able to see it. Then we can be able to see the cytoplasm of the cell. Cytoplasm of the cell can also be seen under light microscope. Then another thing that we can see is the vacuole of the cell. These are some of the structures that we can see in the plant cell when we use light microscope. But now, when we look at the two cells, when we see the animal cell and the plant cell, the structures or the organelles that we can see under light microscope, they do differ. We see more in the plant cell than in the animal cell. But now when we subject the two forms or the two types of cells under electronic microscope, then we shall be able to see a lot of structures in these cells. For example, when we look at our right, there is a display of an animal cell being seen under electron microscope. But when you look at that cell, you'll be able to see that there are a number of structures which ranges from the vacuole of the cell also being seen. You'll find that the animal cell also has vacuole, which we can only see when we use electronic microscope, but when we use light microscope, we cannot see it. Then you will also see that within the animal cell, there is also the nuclear membrane and with the nuclear pore. Then there is the endoplasmic reticulum that we also see, and it also possesses the mitochondria and some of the nucleolus, which are also seen within the nuclear membrane. And the animal cell also still contains the vacuoles which are forming within the surface of the cell, and maybe some granules of the glycogen. So you can see a lot in the animal cell when we observe it under light microscope in the picture that is displayed in the right of the video here, in front of the video here that you are seeing. So this is one of the important structures that we can study. And also when we look at the same plant cell that we had looked at in the first part, you realize that when we also subject the plant cell under electronic microscope, you'll also be able to see a number of structures which we cannot see when we use a light microscope. And these structures can include the mitochondria can also be seen there. Then the Golgi body can also be seen. Then we also have nuclear membrane, nucleolus, and we can also see endoplasmic reticulum. And still, we shall discover that the vacuole of the cell is being surrounded by a tautonoplast. All these, we can only see them when we use electronic microscope, because it has very high magnifying power that gives broader details about this cell than the light microscope. And that's why we're able to see the structures of the two cells appearing different when we look at them with the two different types of microscope. So those are some of the structures that we can see within the cell. So don't forget to check part 2 of this lesson, where we shall look at the function of each of these parts of the cell.